Hello, Rosedale Rizzos. I have a book for you today called When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant. I wanted to remind you that I also read The Relatives Came by Cynthia Rylant. And this was about a fun summer vacation when the relatives came to visit a family and how much fun they had. So let's see how this book by the same author talks about family. When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant. When I was young in the mountains, Grandfather came home in the evening covered with the black dust of a coal mine. Only his lips were clean, and he used them to kiss the top of my head. When I was young in the mountains, Grandmother spread the table with hot cornbread, pinto beans, and fried okra. You can tell by how they're dressed and what they're eating. This is not like how it is today. Later, in the middle of the night, she walked through the grass with me to the Johnny house and held my hand in the dark. I promised never to eat more than one serving of okra again. Boys and girls, they had to go outside to use the outhouse. The bathroom was outside the house. You can see that little room where they're going. When I was young in the mountains, we walked across the cow pasture and through the woods, carrying our towels. The swimming hole was dark and muddy, and we sometimes saw snakes, but we jumped in anyway. On our way home, we stopped at Mr. Crawford's for a mound of white butter. Mr. Crawford and Mrs. Crawford looked alike and always smelled of sweet milk. When I was young in the mountains, we pumped pails of water from the well at the bottom of the hill and heated the water to fill round tin tubs for our bath. They're getting their water outside too, boys and girls. Afterward, we stood in front of the old black stove, shivering and giggling while Grandmother heated cocoa on top. After their bath in the tubs, they got to drink hot chocolate and warm up in front of the stove. When I was young in the mountains, we went to church in the schoolhouse on Sundays, and sometimes walked with the congregation through the cow pasture to the dark swimming hole for baptisms. They went to church in their schoolhouse. Very different life. My cousin Peter was laid back into the water. His white shirt stuck to him, and my grandmother cried. He was getting baptized in the swimming hole. When I was young in the mountains, we listened to frogs sing at dusk and awoke to cowbells outside our windows. Sometimes a black snake came into the yard, and my grandmother would threaten it with a hoe. Look at the snake. Grandmother's going to scare that snake away. If it did not leave, she used the hoe to kill it. 4 of us once draped a very long snake, dead of course, across our necks for a photograph. Ooh. When I was young in the mountains, we sat on the porch swinging in the evenings, and Grandfather sharpened my pencils with his pocket knife. Grandmother sometimes shelled beans and sometimes braided my hair. The dogs lay around us, and the stars sparkled in the sky. A bob white whistled in the forest. Bob, bob, bob white. When I was young in the mountains, I never wanted to go to the ocean. I never wanted to go to the desert. I never wanted to go anywhere else in the world, for I was in the mountains, and that was always enough. And there she sits at home reading a book. So boys and girls, I want you to think about how different your life is. What's the same about your life? Do you get to see your grandparents? Maybe you live with your grandparents. When I Was Young in the Mountains by Cynthia Rylant.